Yeah. So as we look into the plot of drain current with respect to variation in drain to source voltage for a particular fixed gate to source voltage, we see that the curve occurs in a linear fashion. Okay, with respect to gate to source, that we shall find out more accurately. Okay, as we see that the variation you can easily understand that when gate to source voltage varies from zero point 0.9 to 0.45, the saturation current also varies from nearly 30 microampere to nearly 120 microampere. So 90 microampere. Here also, as it varies from 1.35 to zero point 0.8, so another 0.45 volt increase in VGS would cause the current to vary by another 90 microampere. So there seems to be a linear relationship between the current, drain current, and the gate to source voltage. Now, we shall find it more through algebraic expression. And saturation voltage is also smaller than what is predicted by the first order model. That means if you look at this carefully, the 1.8 volt is the gate to source voltage, and threshold voltage for all these cases is taken to be nearly 0.5 volt. So 1.8 minus 0.5, that means for 1.3 volt, the saturation is supposed to start, but it has started quite earlier. That means as soon as the drain to source voltage goes past 1 volt, the saturation has almost taken up, and by 1.1 volt, the device is firmly in saturation. Okay, so however, from the theoretical conventional long channel argument, okay, it should start at 1.8 minus 0.5 or 1.3 volt. And similarly for 1.35 volt, it should start at say 1.35 minus 0.5, that means 0.8, but it will start somewhat earlier. Similarly for 0.9 volt. Now, as we see, the slope of these that means this current curve, these characteristics becomes almost parallel uh, to the x-axis. That means the drain to source voltage. Now the reason for this, now we shall try to find out. And here also, as you can see, that variation of drain current with respect to the uh, with the gate to source voltage is almost parabolic. Not parabolic actually. It is here. It is taken part. It is almost linear. You can say. Okay. So we shall try to uh, probe into this, investigate this more analytically. Before that, the effect of high field, as we can tend to take into consideration, is this horizontal field. That means the longitudinal field. Okay, so longitudinal field means which extends from drain to source along the y direction in the direction of channel pointing from drain to source is Ey equal to VDS by L. And vertical field occurs in x direction from gate to channel. It is approximated by Ex equal to VDD by TOx. TOx is the thickness of the oxide. Now, some typical values we are showing in 1980. The value of the longitudinal field was 10 to the power 4 volt per centimeter. And 15 years down the line, it increased by a order of magnitude, you can say, roughly 10 to the power 5. And again, after 6 years, it has increased further. So what we see, and similarly for the transverse field, that means the field due to gate to source voltage, which is applied across the insulator. So here also we see that in an order of magnitude increase in the value of Ex. Okay. Now this will happen as regards probably it is a constant field scaling, we can say. I'm sorry. The uh, as the thickness or the dimensions are coming down, so obviously if the voltage remains the same, okay, constant voltage scaling, so the field value will definitely increase. Now, what is the effect of that? Normally, the effect is that at the oxide at the oxide silicon interface, there happens some electron scattering due to dangling bonds in the silicon dioxide interface, and due to that, the mobility will decrease. There is constant collision amongst the carriers as they move about. So, effect of vertical field on mobility is modeled to the first order as follows. Now, this is a empirical relation. Mu E, that means the actual mobility, is related to the low field mobility and certain other empirical parameters like theta and eta. So, I mean, the values are given. I mean, no need to memorize this. Just it suffices to know that it is the low field mobility. If it's say 540 centimeters square per volt second, the when the field when the electric field becomes as high as 10 to the power 5 volt per centimeter, so it can comes down by an order of 2. From 540, it comes down to 270 centimeters square per volt second. And for carriers, the whole positive carriers, it is even smaller. So as we can see that the electron mobility is nearly 4 times larger than hole mobility. Horizontal field tends to reduce the mobility even more. Okay, so this is the effect of vertical field, and these and horizontal mobility also tends to the reason may be more or less similar. That means it imparts a lot of energy to the carriers, and in during their journey from source to drain, the carriers uh, undergo collision amongst themselves, and so that after the collision, they when they tend to recover from them before they start again their journey. Okay, so a lot of collisions happen, and this tends to decrease their speed and thereby the mobility also. But how to take care of them, how to accommodate them in the reasoning? For that, as we can see, the saturation, it has been measured also. This curve is from the book of Z, the semiconductor device book celebrated around the world. So at T equal to 400 degree Kelvin, the velocity of the carriers, both electron and holes, are found to be nearly 8 into 10 to the power 6 centimeter per second. And at further down, that means at room temperature, that is T equal to 300 degree Kelvin, it is slightly higher, 10 to the power 7. So at lower temperature, the agitation is less collision, so it can retain its velocity, somewhat larger. Now the critical field values, however, differ between electron and hole. Okay, so we find that the critical field for the carriers, hole, the positive carriers, happens to be 4 times larger than that of the electron. Okay, an effect of the horizontal field on mobility. This is taken care of by expressing the mobility as a or velocity as a piecewise function of electric field. That means prior to reaching the electric field, the velocity tends to increase linearly with temperature, with velocity. Sorry, with field, because of the conventional relation that velocity equal to mobility times the electric field. However, as soon as the critical field is reached, so it sharply becomes constant with further increase in electric field. And further electric field is scarcely attained, is rarely gone, I mean, is rarely adopted, because it leads to a lot of undesired second order phenomena like breakdown phenomena. Okay, so designers hardly ever go up to the critical field. Okay, but to theoretically reason about the effect of field on mobility by two segments, okay, the effect of electric field on mobility is portrayed. And this is the expression, that means velocity equal to mu e times ey upon 1 plus ey by ec. And also beyond ey equal to ec, it is saturation velocity. Now, at the intersection of the two segments, okay, we have got, for the sake of continuity, at the boundary of the two segments, at ey equal to ec, the voltage is kept as the critical velocity, that means saturation velocity. Okay, so at the critical field at ey equal to ec, we have got the saturation velocity of the carriers. Okay, so here we get the saturation velocity can be related to the critical field by this expression. So this is an important expression. That means the saturation velocity equal to mu e into ec by 2. Now we'll make use of this important expression. Okay, on deriving the current voltage equation for velocity saturated uh, devices. Let us see how. In the linear region, we remember that the drain current can be expressed as product of Qn, that means the inversion charge per unit area, and velocity and width of the channel. This we have seen earlier. Okay, so the this inversion charge can be expressed as the product of gate capacitance per unit area and the net channel voltage. That means VGS is the vertical voltage between gate to source. Vy varies. You see, V is a function of Y. So reverse biasing effect is least on the source side. So Vy equal to 0 there, and at the drain it is VDS. In the channel which lies between source and drain, connecting source and drain, so it will vary. Okay. Now and the VT is the technology threshold voltage. And for velocity, we get the expression, that means on the limiting as the mobility and as well as the velocity gets limited with respect to the field. So this expression we bring in, and the width of the channel is there. Now Vy is the channel voltage with respect to the source, and note that Ey we are writing as simply the space derivative of the channel voltage. Okay. Now, so here making use of this expression, we can write it in this fashion, and we try to take into account the fact that analytically Ey equal to minus dV dy. Okay, and also the channel charge is negative. Okay, as the carriers are involved to be electrons mostly. But for the sake of getting the magnitude of the current with respect to various voltage parameters and also field, okay, we assume that I is E, the electric field is only dV dy, not negative. So here we see, after some manipulation, the current expression happens to be like this: W by L mu E Cx, and this voltage quadratic dependence on voltage, however. But in the denominator, 1 plus VDS by ECL, that is the point of departure from whatever we saw in the case of conventional long channel device. So please note down this multiplying factor that occurs in the denominator, that acts as a limiting factor on the current. Okay, so as this is, however, this equation holds in the linear region. Okay, let us see what will happen in case of saturation. Now, when we try to get the expression at saturation, okay, we need to remember that the saturation velocity is given by the product of mobility, critical field, okay, mu E and EC by 2. So again, invoking the expression for current, that means the product of width of the channel, then the voltage, this is the saturation velocity, and the channel charge per unit area. Okay, here we assume that current will be same throughout the channel. There is some approximation which is called gradual channel approximation. That means mobility is taken to be same throughout the channel. The VGS is taken to be same. Also, the current is assumed to be the same throughout the channel. So under this expression, we can write in this fashion. Okay, so VDS is replaced by VDSAT. That means at the onset of saturation, if we take into account the current voltage equation, so just replace VSAT by mu EC by 2. Okay, and equate equation 1 and 2, because this holds in saturation and this holds at linear region. So when the device goes from the triode curve, that means triode region to the saturation region, at the boundary of these two, we can relate the value of VDSAT with the field. So this will be possible if we equate equation 1 and equation 2, okay, where we replace VDS by VDSAT, right? And we get it in this fashion. After simplification, we get the value of VDSAT to be VGS minus VT into ECL. So just see, again, there is a multiplying factor, namely the product of critical field and channel length, divided by VGS minus VT plus ECL. So this is obviously less than 1. That means for short channel device, scale down device, we see that VDSAT is no longer equal to VGS minus VT. But saturation takes place earlier than what was predicted for conventional long channel device. Okay, so that means in case of conventional long channel device, as you incrementally increase the drain to source voltage, the moment equals VGS minus VT, saturation is found to occur. But here it takes place somewhat earlier because of the presence of this. I mean, mathematically we show through the presence of this term ECL divided by 1 divided by VGS minus VT plus ECL, which is less than 1, obviously. So we need to note the difference between the expression that relates to VDSAT in case of short channel device, and in the case of earlier long channel device where VDSAT equal to VGS minus VT. And this will definitely influence the current value also. Okay, so VDSAT is always less than what is predicted by the first order model. Now let us go over to the expression of current, and this is primarily the effect of velocity saturation. You see, that means early saturation means what? The current value. Early saturation means the curve was climbing slowly in the linear or triode or resistive region. In the non-saturation region, the current tends to climb with respect to drain to source voltage. But as soon as it reaches saturation, after that, it almost remains parallel to the voltage axis. So if the VDSAT is lower than what is predicted, then the current will obviously stop increasing linearly and it will be almost saturated. It is almost fixed at as soon as the drain to source voltage exceeds VDSAT. So this is for late saturation, this is for early saturation. And in fact, early saturation takes place for short channel device. So if you substitute the value of VDSAT, that means this one, VGS minus VT into ECL divided by VGS minus VT plus ECL here in the current expression. Once again, recall that the current is given by the product of channel width, the saturation velocity, and the net inversion charge per unit area, where in case of Vy, the channel charge, we have replaced it by the VDSAT expression, namely VGS minus VT into ECL divided by VGS minus VT plus ECL. And we come out with this. This is an important expression. Product of channel width, saturation velocity, gate capacitance per unit area, and VGS minus VT square in the numerator, and in the denominator you have got VGS minus VT plus ECL, which is similar to the first order expression. Okay. So just for your benefit, I have brought in this. Okay. Here we see we need to consider two limiting cases, one for the conventional long channel device and the other for scale down device. Let us examine the case for long channel device. That means the product of critical field and the channel length happens to be exceeding VGS minus VD by a large amount. Okay. So typical value also we can think of, say 10 to the power 4 volt per 10 to the power 4 volt per centimeter or 5 volt per, and say 200 nanometer. Okay, then it becomes nearly 4.8 volt. Okay. On the other end, this can be very small. VGS say 1.8, this say 0.3. So VGS minus VT is quite smaller compared to the product of the channel length and the critical field. In that case, in the algebraic expression, what we can do, that means this term will be negligible. Okay, and then ECL will come out and it becomes W by L. Okay, and VSAT equal to mu EC by 2. So EC and EC gets cancelled. What remains is that mu COX by 2 into W by L into VGS minus VT whole square. So quadratic relationship between the current and voltage will remain as it was predicted for long channel device. But nowadays, for the scale down device, ECL, this will become somewhat smaller, much smaller compared to this. Okay. So here we shall see some numerical expression also where it will be more clear. So this reduces the equation 4 to this form. That means if ECL dominates over VGS minus VT, I'm sorry, if ECL is negligible compared to VGS minus VT, then you see these terms gets neglected, and here you get the product of W, VSAT, COX, and simply VGS minus VT. So drain current varies linearly with respect to the gate to source voltage. Okay, linearly with VGS minus VT. Here we see some numerical figure to convince us. So you see that for NMOS and PMOS saturation voltages are, we know that let us try to find out the saturation voltage assuming VG is equal to 1.8 volt and the technology threshold voltage for both N-type carriers and P-type carriers are 0.5 volt numerically. Assume the channel length is 200 nanometer or 0.2 micrometer. So for electrons, the product of critical field and channel length is this 6 into 10 to the power 4 per volt per centimeter into 0.2 or 1.2 volt. Whereas in case of holes, it is critical field value multiplied by the channel length. So it is 4.8 volt. Okay. So the value of VDSAT for electrons, it is 0.624 volt, whereas for PMOS, it is 1.02 volt. Now, the fact that the drain to source saturation velocity, the voltage happens to be larger for PMOS transistor. So we can expect that the climbing continues for longer time for holes. So that means overall, the current expected by PMOS transistor will be somewhat more compared to that by the NMOS transistor. So PMOS device will be able to provide a higher current. Okay, because it continues to climb. The current curve continues to climb for greater voltage. Okay, with the variation of VDS, right? This is how. That means for relatively late saturation will occur for PMOS device compared to NMOS device. And say, for example, here this VDSAT equal to 0.6, here it is 1.02. So some difference is there. Let us see through experimental data. Here we show for your reference the effect of mobility and velocity saturation on the device size. Device size means 1x. 1x means the feature size value. That means here 1x means the channel width and channel length is same. 2x means the width is 2 times higher in magnitude compared to the channel length. 3x means 3 times higher in magnitude compared to the channel length. So by increasing width with respect to channel length, we increase the current driving ability of the device. Here we see that after the PMOS transistor reaches saturation, and that it does at a higher voltage, the NMOS transistor reaches at a smaller voltage. So PMOS transistor, which is 3 times larger compared to NMOS transistor, okay, so they show almost similar current after the PMOS transistor reaches saturation. Okay, so if we plot the current for both NMOS and PMOS devices with minimum W by L ratio, however, for feature size PMOS transistor, it is much smaller. Here it is a 240. Here it is nearly 1/3 of that. So what does it mean? However, we saw that as far as the mobility is concerned for PMOS, it is lower by a factor of 4. That means recall that for PMOS device, the mobility of holes is nearly 70 centimeters square per volt second. Whereas for NMOS device, it is almost 4 times larger, 270 centimeters square per volt second. However, it is required to increase the size of the PMOS device not by a factor of 4 but by a factor of 3. So what can be the reason for that? One reason can be that although there is a difference in mobility by a factor of 4, it may be that the VDSAT is larger for PMOS device compared to NMOS device. Okay. Here we get that from the analytical value, the current ratio of the two 1x devices is this, IDSAT N by IDSAT P. So this expression we saw, okay, that means for short channel device. Here, if we put in the typical numerical value, that means say to compare between NMOS device and PMOS device, let us keep the gate bias to be same 1.8 and numerical magnitude of their threshold voltage is same, namely 0.5 volt, and also product of critical field and channel length happens to be 4.8 volt, near 4 times larger compared to that of the PMOS device. Okay, saturation velocity is also taken to be same. So what we can do and get capacitance per unit area, this is a technological uh, parameter. So this remains same for both device. So VSAT COX is same for both device. They get cancelled out. And VGS minus VT, this also gets cancelled out. So what remains is that VGS minus VT P, for, that means for the similarly sized device, that means WN equal to WP, what remains is the this factor, VGS minus VTP plus ECP, LP and this. So here if we put in the value, we get it to be nearly 2.4. This is, however, hand calculation. Okay, so we have put in the values as obtained from the numerical data. However, the simulation curve shows it. So there lies a difference. Okay, that means this equation tells us that if you can widen the PMOS device nearly 2.4 times, then we are going to get the same current. That means with a PMOS device equal to 2.4 times that of the NMOS device, we can expect the same current. But that is predicted from the hand calculation. Okay. Again, from mobility consideration, we get it that it should be 4 times larger. But actually, this curve has been brought out from the SPICE simulation and also maybe experimental data. SPICE simulation takes up, you may be knowing that Berkeley SPICE simulator level 2, it tends to keep different device factors closely. So we can expect that the simulated value, that means the current voltage value that we get by running the SPICE simulator, will be more or less accurate compared to the hand calculated data. Okay, so here for one thing, due to difference in VDSAT, okay, we saw that for PMOS device it is nearly 1.02, whereas for NMOS device it is smaller, 0.62. The required device ratio to deliver same amount of current, here we found it 2.4 times. And also the above hand, but this hand analysis actually underestimates the current ratio in saturation. Okay, so we see that the IDSAT P equal to nearly 80 microampere for 1x PMOS device. Okay, whereas IDS N for the same size device it is 240. So a difference of factor by the differ by a factor of 3. Okay, so current ratio is 3:1. So if we go for hand calculation, we'll be forced to underestimate the size increase requirement. That means this asks us to widen the device by factor of 2.4. But this the simulated data tells us that you have to make the device thrice as wide. Then only we can expect to get similar magnitude of current at saturation. Okay, okay. But we'll take the simulated result from SPICE simulation to be more accurate. Next, for the sake of comparing between the NMOS and PMOS current in saturation for other process node, namely 130 nanometer. Here, however, we take the 2 lambda value, that means the channel length and the feature size for 1x device to be 0.1 micrometer rather than 0.13 micrometer. Okay, there may be reason that for the sake of photolithography, okay, so it should be of this dimension, of this manageable dimension, 100 nanometer rather than 130 nanometer. So for this, what we get, the product of critical field and the channel length happens to be 0.6 volt. Here it is 4 times larger. Okay, so of course, if we calculate now the drain to source current, this is given by this. This is a very important expression, product of channel width, saturation velocity, COX, VGS minus VT square, and divide by this factor. So if we need to calculate the saturation current per micron, that means per unit width, this value happens to be 585 microampere per micrometer, whereas this is 256 microampere per micrometer. Now, if you If you take the ratio, it will be nearly 2.3. Okay, 2.258 or something like that. If you have a calculator, you can see that 585 divided by 256 will give you around 2.28 something, nearly 2.3. So this, why do we measure this? It is due to the fact that this, and also note that this is the saturation region current. So it means that when you are having a inverter or some gate with this typical, what should be the typical size of the device which will produce a driving current of, say, some value of the current. So if it requires a driving current of 600 microampere, then we can work with the unit size device. Okay. However, up suppose 1.2 microampere current is required for effectively uh, pulling down a capacitive load. So for acceptable, say, charge down time, if it is required, say, nearly 600 microampere or say 1.2 milliampere, then you need to have a device width of twice the minimum value. Okay, because all other parameters remaining same. For example, saturation velocity we cannot change. COX is defined by technology, fixed by technology, we cannot change. And suppose, as the circuit designer says that this should be the voltage, the terminal voltage should be maintained as 1.2 volt or whatever. This is a technology threshold voltage, we cannot do much about that. Only thing, and also channel length is normally fixed for a particular process node. So only thing that is that we can tend to vary is the width of the device. Okay, so the current per unit width we measure in order to have a estimate of what should be the value of the width in order to come up with the necessary current for driving a particular load. Okay, okay, so that is the major objective. So in summary, the equations for deep submicron device we can mention. So whenever, so this is the equation for VDSAT. So whenever the drain to source voltage exceeds this expression, it means the device goes into saturation. And now if you keep into consideration the channel modulation effect, that means having reached the saturation, the current tends to rise, but with a very small slope, as small as say 0.1, okay, much smaller. But if you have to get a accurate change of the current, then this should be the expression. 1 plus lambda VDS would be the multiplying factor. And if VDS is lower than VDSAT, it will be in linear region, and this is the expression of the current in linear region. Again, as far as the current ratio for 130 nanometer process is considered. Okay, so here you see that for channel length 100 nanometer, product of the critical field and channel length is 0.6 volt. Product of critical field and channel length is 2.4 volt for PMOS device. And these are the terminal voltages, say for 130 nanometer, which is equal to 1.2 volt. And the technology threshold voltage also is a bit smaller than what we saw for 180 nanometer, that is 0.4 volt here. So the drain to source saturation velocity happens to be 0.34, whereas it is slightly lower than a factor of 2, it is 0.6 volt. And putting all the values into consideration, we see that only this VGS minus VTP plus ECPLP divided by VGS minus VTN plus 16 else. So it is 2.3. It means that if you take feature size device, say 1x NMOS and 1x PMOS, then 1x PMOS, whatever the current will be shown, 1x NMOS will show 2.3 times larger current. Okay, so this difference in the critical field of the PMOS carrier, of the holes or positive carriers with respect to negative carriers, account for the what do you call the greater value of, that means you can expect that whatever is predicted from the mobility consideration should not be followed. But this is again hand calculation. As you will be taking the SPICE simulation, you will get the more accurate value. But for some case, for speedy calculation, we need to take the hand calculation expression. This is very useful. Okay, dear friends, any question so far? That on the velocity saturated current voltage expression. So you please try to study about the derivation of current equation for velocity saturated device. Also, this important expression should be noted. Okay. Now, yes. Yeah. Any question?
Sir, for
Sir, for
the
the
0.13 nanometer process, you took the length to be zero point 0.1. So, so if we are given 0.18 process, then what should we take it means?
Okay, for 180 nanometer process, the typical terminal value that you should take, VGS should be taken as 1.8 volt. Okay, and technology threshold voltage, it will be provided. But for the sake of knowledge, you can see that whenever we are taking into account 180 nanometer process, so gate to source voltage, in fact, the biasing voltage, okay, typical VDS also will be taken to be 1.8 volt. And the technology threshold voltage for NMOS device, it is taken to be 0.5 volt, whereas technology threshold voltage VT for PMOS device will be taken to be minus 0.5 volt. And the channel, the critical field ECN will be 6 into 10 to the power 4 volt per centimeter, and ECP equal to 24 into 4 times larger, 24 into 10 to the power 4 volt per centimeter. And channel length you have to take for both the device. That means channel length normally we do not tamper with. Okay, so channel length is kept fixed both for NMOS and PMOS device to be nearly 0.2 micrometer or 200 nanometer. That is for 180 nanometer process. Okay, but when you come down to 130 nanometer process, okay, the feature size, that means the channel length is taken to be 100 nanometer rather than 130 nanometer. But I do not know the actual reason. Okay, there should be some reason. It appears to me that it has been there so that we can have a when one migrates from 180 nanometer to 130 nanometer, for easily manageable dimensions, perhaps the feature size has been kept as 100 nanometer rather than 130 nanometer. But again, when you as as earlier, the what you call the full scaling was attempted. That means the constant field scaling. So with the downscaling of the device, okay, from say 200 to 100, the field was not exactly downscale. That means from 180 it did not come to 0.9 volt, but the bias voltage was kept to be 1.2 volt. So for 130 nanometer, the gate to source voltage is taken to be 1.2 volt. For 180, it is kept to be 1.8 volt. Okay. And the technology threshold voltage, the nominal value of the threshold voltage was 0.5 volt for 180 nanometer process, whereas for 130 nanometer, it is 0.4 volt. Okay. So these are the typical values. And this will, the channel length being different for 130 nanometer and also 180 nanometer. So it will lead to some amount of difference in the but it is not a gross difference. You can see why for 130 nanometer, as you can see that even by hand calculation, it is required to the hand calculation predicts or instructs us to increase the relative width of NMOS, say PMOS device by a factor of say 2.3. 585 by 256 is nearly 2.3. This you can verify, 2.258 or something. So, and for 180 nanometer, it instructs us to increase it by a factor of 2.4. Okay, this is for 180 nanometer. Whereas for 120, for 130 nanometer, it is 2.3. So 2.4 is not much different from 2.3. Okay. However, normally one goes for spice simulation, and the experimental data that is accounted for, that is uh, normally kept for discussion, will be the one that is obtained by spice simulation. Okay, and also actual experimental measurement. The spice simulated data is found to have a good correspondence with the experimental data. This, however, will be for the first order of calculation, okay, which is also uh, very popular. But normally, as you see, that the difference in size of the or relative difference in the size of PMOS and NMOS device when we build up inverter and later on gate. So the ratio is kept to be integral rather than fractional. So normally we do not find that the WP is kept to be 2.5. Yeah, if you have to constrain the area, overall area of a design system, electronic system, then people may go for 2.5 times increase. But for the sake of you can see easy representability for when you prepare the mask. Okay, so integral ratio of the width of the devices, say for PMOS and NMOS, if you keep it to be 3:1 rather than 2.5:1, so 3:1 will be easier to generate through what you call even mechanically also it will be easier to generate, and the for the fabrication house also it may be easier to reproduce in actual silicon. That is my guess. However, I'm not I am not knowledgeable about the intricacies of fabrication technology. You can tell me better, I think. Okay, so this is how the different technologies have taken into account the evolution of the terminal voltage, say from 1.8 to 1.2 volt. Also, the channel length has gone from 200 nanometer to 100 nanometer, and so on.
Hello,
Okay,
sir.
yes, yes.
Sir, so what will happen if there is a difference between the saturation current, drain saturation current for NMOS and PMOS? Like, if we
Yeah,
are fabricating both in the same technology, so what will happen if there is a difference? Like you now suggested and told that we keep the ratio to be 3 instead of 2.3. So for
yes,
the
yes,
drain saturation current will be more as compared to NMOS.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, a very good question. Yes, Ravi. So, let me once again show it. Suppose you are building a inverter, okay, with NMOS as the pull down device and PMOS as the pull up device. Now, here we see that pull up device is if you take it to be 1x PMOS, and pull down device if you take it to 1x NMOS, okay, PMOS and NMOS, then the current difference lies by a factor of 3. And suppose it is driving a capacitive load of say 1 femtofarad or so, just for the sake of argument I'm telling. So it will be shown that if you have to charge up the capacitive load, so it is the responsibility of the pull up PMOS device. And in order to charge down the capacitive load, it is the responsibility of the pull down NMOS device. So if you take only minimum size NMOS and minimum size PMOS to construct the inverter, so so inevitably there will be asymmetry in the charge up and charge down time. Okay. For example, as we know that the charge requirement, that is the product of current and time. Okay. So roughly you can say that linear constant current charging happens. So in that case, you find current multiplied by the time will give me the charge. Okay. So charge, and assume that, and of course, if you have to charge up the capacitive load by an amount and charge down, that means let us say that the terminal voltage across the capacitance is, once it goes right up to the bias voltage, and then it comes down, it goes right up to 0 volt. So in that case, due to the difference in the saturation current of the feature size PMOS and feature size NMOS by a factor of 3, if we take if we take the same size device, okay, it will lead to asymmetry in the charge up and charge down term. So charge up term will be 3 times slower because of the smaller amount of current by factor of 3. So it will dictate us this experimental, this train, this spice simulated data will be able to dictate to us that if we have to make the charge down and charge up time to be similar, to be same almost, then you have to make the PMOS device 3 times wider. Okay. So as you see here, that 3x PMOS and 1x NMOS gives me similar amount of current after the PMOS device reaches the saturation, though after a greater amount of voltage. But normally the channel voltage, the terminal voltage are kept to be larger than VDSAT. VDSAT, you can say, gives you a estimate of what should be the minimum terminal voltage. Okay, so here, for example, VDS is equal to nearly say 1.02 or 1.2 volt, or 1.02 volt, and this VDSAT for NMOS is 0.6. So as the PMOS voltage VDSAT is higher than NMOS, so for all practical purpose, you should subject the device to work for a drain to source voltage definitely larger than 1.02. Okay, so this gives you an estimate of the voltage that the inverter should be subjected to. So that means the difference in the saturation current of PMOS and NMOS will be a pointer, will be a will help us determine the required size of the individual devices, so that we can get a acceptable, elegant timing characteristic. Okay, that will be a indicator of the requirement of the size. Okay, got it, Ravi? Now,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So now let us see briefly another mechanism. You can say this alpha power law model. It was invented by the Japanese inventor scientist Sakurai in 1990. So this is another approach for a hand calculation model empirically to feed the real data to the following form of IDC saturation. So here the what you can say, the whatever was experimentally found out or even by spice simulation, so that we try to give a curve fit. But for linear fit, you can say that two segments are there. Okay, so this guy again you can say this sort of piecewise linear model. But Sakurai gave this equation for the saturation region. So when the device reaches the saturation, the drain to source current is given by this. This case is you can say it is sort of a process transconductance, then the aspect ratio W by L and VGS minus VT to the power alpha. Now, during his time, alpha was nearly 1.25, but presently it must be very near to 1. Whatever be the value of alpha and the value of case, that can be arrived at by for a set of experimental data. Okay, so if we get it for two successive values of the terminal voltage, then we can predict that if the terminal voltage is brought down, okay, and it needs to be brought down for the next process node. Okay, so obviously we can predict the saturation current for that. So this is useful for predicting the saturation current for further scale down device. In fact, we can set the Ks and alpha based on the measured data. Let us see how. So here we show it for three typical voltages: 1.8, 1.35, and 0.9 volt. And in deep submicron device, alpha should be set to a value closer to 1 than 2. But let us find out experimentally. So this model, however, does not account for the device variability linearly. So for that, this typical expression was arrived at. Now, why VDS? Only VDS is kept. You see that in the saturation region, okay, VDS is the current varies linearly with respect to VDS. So quadratic dependence on VDS is not there. That's why only VDS is kept. Okay, VDS square is not there because this is much smaller than 1. So if you have to keep into in the linear region, if you have to take into account the VDS, it is better to keep only as in a linear form. Okay, so simple model must therefore be developed for the alpha power law that fits both linear and saturation with no mismatch at the boundary. Then what we do, you equate this to expression in order to get the value of VDS. That is found out to be this. Anyway, for this, suppose we have got experimentally 1.35 and 1.8, but we need to predict the value for 0.9 volt. What we can do is that we can find out Ks and alpha based on the above figure, where we assume for simplicity that WIL, the aspect ratio is 1, and the technology threshold voltage 0.5, both for 1.8 and 1.35. Okay, so from the plot, we can estimate the saturation value of, say, 1.35. It is taken to be 130 microampere, and this is taken to be 220 ladies. Okay, so with 220 microampere and 130 microampere, what we can do is that, you see, at saturation, however, and at saturation, this is the expression. Okay, that means Ks, WIL, Vs. So the ratio of the two currents will boil down to a ratio of Vgs minus Vt to the power alpha, and that is also Vgs minus Vt to the power alpha. So here we find that Ks gets cancelled out. From here we get the value of alpha, 1.692 equal to 1.30.85. So what you can do, you take the logarithm. Okay, alpha into log of ratio is equal to log of this. So you get this in this form. Alpha is found to be 1.245, and for correct up to 2 places after decimal, it is kept to be 1.25. And alpha is unitless. Okay, now to solve for Ks, the process transconductance. Okay, it is found to be, you see, for 220 microampere. Okay, put alpha equal to 1.25. So Ks is found to be nearly 160 microampere per V to the power 1.25. So note that the unit associated with Ks is peculiar. Microampere divided by V to the power 1.25. It is because of the fact that alpha is an exponent of the voltage term, and that is nearly 1.25. So microampere divided by V to the power 1.25. Okay. It is expected for long channel device, the exponent was 2, but for short channel device, it is progressively going near and near to 1. Now to check the values for 0.9 volt, we find that it is equal to the value of K is equal to 160, and you get it to be nearly 50 microampere. Okay. So you can predict the value, and you can say there is a one-to-one correspondence between the experimental value and the predicted value. Normally it happens. So this alpha power law model was quite popular. Okay. So this is about the what you can say, the current voltage expression, and also thinking of the hand calculation model and trying to fit the experimental data. So alpha power law model was very popular. Now next we go to take into account the subthreshold conduction. Subthreshold conduction means that when the gate to source voltage is below the technology threshold voltage, still appreciable current conduction takes place. But the fact is that by slight variation of the gate to source voltage, that means bringing down the gate to source voltage somewhat lower, the current will be decreased by a exponential. It can be shown to vary exponentially. So current will decrease by an order of magnitude. Okay. So what is the reason behind that? That we tend to investigate. Actually, there is appreciable transistor current even though VGS is lower than VT, especially for deep submicron transistors. But for single device, you can neglect it, but you have got millions of such devices all leaking current, then standby power dissipation is quite appreciable. And this leakage current is disturbing for dynamic logic circuits and dynamic memories, because this will drain the capacitive load, and the information can get lost. Okay, as it will discharge the capacitor that store the logic values. Okay. Now to limit the subthreshold current, one should avoid lower VT. Why? So although the terminal voltage is coming down with downscaling of device, but people resisted the temptation to bring down the threshold voltage. Why? If you bring down the threshold voltage, then the power dissipation will increase. Subthreshold current will be, because VT if you bring down, so with slight increase in VGS, the transistors will start conducting current, and that will lead to undesired power dissipation. So to limit the power dissipation, VT was not decreased as terminal voltage was decreased. So if you do that, what do you get? I say that there is a speed penalty, but how? For that, I just take your attention for this expression. Very simple expression. Say for conventional long channel device, K into VGS minus VT whole square by 2. Okay. So time into current is capacitance into voltage. So here we see that if VT is kept constant, even though VGS is coming down, as VT is kept constant, so the difference is that, say, suppose 1.8 volts is 0.5, then 1.3, it still remains as 0.5. It is not brought down to 0.4. Then what will happen is that the time will increase. Okay, right? That means the denominator will be smaller, okay, with the downscaling of VGS, but VT is kept same. So as VT is not brought down, so this denominator will be smaller, okay, with the decrease of voltage, and that will lead to increase of threshold, increase of time. That means the propagation delay will increase if VT is not decreased. So why VT is not decreased? In order to control the power dissipation. But due to that, we suffer a speed penalty. That means the propagation delay will increase. Sometimes if our objective becomes to contain the subthreshold current, because we have got millions of devices, then the objective should be abstain from decreasing the threshold voltage. Do not decrease. Okay. Because if you decrease the threshold voltage, definitely the propagation delay will decrease. But we tend to keep the propagation delay a bit larger, but to save the power dissipation. Okay, dear friend, just pardon me. I have to open the gate of my house. I'm just coming here after 2 minutes. Okay, just give me 2 minutes. Okay, sorry for that. Now, so as we see that to limit the subthreshold current, the designers go for increasing the propagation delay. That means the speed performance suffers. So there is a sort of trade-off. That means to control subthreshold conduction and thereby power dissipation, the designers tend to increase the propagation delay. Okay. So that is called delay power trade-off. Now, what do we mean by subthreshold conduction? That means at threshold strong inversion, we know that at the surface it becomes strongly inverted, means the surface band bending here. So this is equal to 5 and this is equal to 5 in the depth, whatever it is. So here it is the channel is as much N type as is P type in the bulk that we saw earlier. But this subthreshold conduction happens even in weak conversion. Okay, that means this band bending is not that much. So this band bending will occur with the higher and higher value of VGS, right? When VGS, that means the threshold voltage we define to be the gate to source voltage for which the band bending here At the surface, it is equal to that whatever we see in the bulk. But weak inversion means some voltage lower than that. That means when VGS is lower than VT, still current conduction happens. So why does that mean in practice surface inversion occurs before this point? So we call this technically to be weak inversion rather than strong inversion. And mobile carriers exist in channel region for VGS lower than VT, and some current conduction takes place. So experimentally, it has found, you see, three regions of operation we take into account here. One is the subthreshold. Here, for example, the typical technology data, that means VT equal to 0.5 volt. So before that, the region is denoted as subthreshold region. Okay. And if assume that the drain to source voltage is also quite small, say 0.2, we are gradually increasing drain to source voltage. So till the threshold voltage, I'm sorry, till the drain to source, the suppose gate to source voltage is attaining the value 0.7, okay, and the VDS is quite small. That means the device is, for practical purpose, it is in it is, we can say, highly. That means this small value of VDS, I don't know where is it used for, probably for experimental purpose. Okay, so as the here actually the gate to source voltage is incrementally increased more and more. So yeah, it is probably to have a better what you call the experimental data for the subthreshold region. That's why the VGS is incrementally brought up. Okay, so even though below VT, appreciable current takes place. So appreciable means not appreciable. You can see that how much it is 1 milliampere. So it is microampere. So 0.1 milliampere. Okay, and two typical experimental data point is considered here. So for example, when VGS equal to 0.212, the value of the drain current is say 100 nanoampere. That means 0.1 microampere. And when VGS is as low, it is lowered by say 72 millivolt. Okay, that means it is 0.14 volt. It has come down by a factor of 10. Quite appreciable decrease in the voltage, in the current, by a factor of 10, right? From 100 to 10 nanoampere. Whereas the voltage has reduced by small value, say from 0.212 to 0.14. That means a decrease of nearly 70 millivolt. Now, so that means current is found to vary exponentially with respect to gate to source voltage. And it can be expressed mathematically in this form. That means the subthreshold current is given by this. IS is the current coefficient, e to the power q into VGS minus VT minus V offset by NKT, multiplied by 1 minus e to the power minus q VDS by VT. So here what we find is that IDS is a continuous function of VGS and drops off in a logarithmic fashion in the subthreshold region as VGS is decreased. Now the physical reason of this current, if you ask me, again, my knowledge in the semiconductor physics is very limited. So what we can say is that this happens because of the fact that a sizable number of Boltzmann distributed carriers, electrons, okay, they starts moving about, okay, with this, even though in weak inversion, and they start moving from source towards the drain. Now, an analogy has been drawn between such movement, although we are considering a field effect transistor, but as the high energy carriers start moving from source to drain due to various reasons, okay, so an analogy has been drawn between the that means as if there is a diffusion potential. If you have got if we consider a reverse bias PN junction, say source here made of N and the P, and the P is body or the substrate. Now it so happens that you can draw an analogy between the such a movement of electrons from source to drain and a lateral transistor, lateral NPN transistor, lateral BJT with very small amount of current amplification. Generally, for if we use BJT For appreciable current, we use vertical bipolar junction transistor. Lateral bipolar junction transistor has got current amplification even smaller than 1 at some point of time. Okay. So here we see that analogy has been drawn between this field effect device behavior with a BJT, where emitter is equated to the source, okay, collector to the drain, and the base with the substrate, the body. So subtracial current flow is found due to diffusion of minority carriers when VGS is less than VT by several thermal voltages. Okay. The detailed physical expansion I'm not aware of. Okay, so we can say that we can look upon this fact as that, as if a reverse bias p-n junction is there and there is a diffusion barrier which has been surmounted by the energetic electrons. Okay, so a sizable percentage of them has found place, and also due to the shortening of the channel length, you have something called DIBL, drain induced barrier lowering. So due to that also, the electrons find an easy passage from the source to drain. Okay, this is about the subtracial current phenomenon.
So,
Yes.
so the subthreshold current is depending on VDS also. So, means in deep triode region, how the value of VDS will affect subthreshold current.
Yeah, as I've seen that it in the subthreshold current, I don't know whether DIBL plays a role, but you can say that due to the continual increase of the channel length. Okay, so I am I'm not remembering the uh, cause of DIBL, drain induced barrier lowering. Just I mentioned that it may be that means in the weak inversion region, the subthreshold current is found to occur, right? So I am trying to gauge the physical reason for that. Maybe that DIBL has got some part to play, but otherwise you can say it is it is a statistical phenomena. That means if you have that means I read somewhere that the Boltzmann distributed electrons, okay, they are due to imparting of energy to them, they find some passage from those students. Anyway, the physical reason, I am sorry, I am not able to answer much. Let us see the mathematics behind that. Okay, so how to mathematically represent the subthreshold current. I'm sorry, Gurmeet, I'm not able to answer the physical reason for subthreshold. Roughly we can say that it is due to diffusion of minority carriers. Minority carriers mean in the p-type substrate, it is a movement of electrons, okay, starting from the source and moving towards the drain. Now, whether DIBL has got some role to play here, I'm not sure. I'm just mentioning that. So it appears that the continuous reduction in the channel length may have got something to do with the barrier lowering, and also in combination you have got the energetic movement of the electrons from source to drain. Okay, coupled with this you have got a continuous current flow, okay, as we see here. But let us see the mathematical representation for that. That means here this current moves as a function of both the gate to source voltage and also the drain to source voltage. Okay, that is 1 minus q e to the power minus q VDS by VT. And this may remind you of the diode equation, right? The p-n junction diode. There also we see something like 1 minus e to the power minus q v by VT. Okay. However, that was e to the power q v by VT. Okay, KT by Q. KT by Q is nothing but the thermal voltage. Okay, some similarity you can find. And what are the parameters? IS is current coefficient. Then V offset is the sum of voltage terms. These offset voltages are coming due to the fact, due to random variation of what you call process technology. Okay, and also some ambient features may be there, like temperature variation and all that, due to which the these V offset terms naturally normally varies from minus 0.12 plus 0.1 volt. And N is an important parameter, that is subthreshold swing parameter, that normally varies from 1 to 2. We shall see in the light of this technology data. Let us see. So that means one can determine the subthreshold swing parameter N by considering how much voltage change in VGS produces an order of magnitude change in the subthreshold current. So for example, here we saw that current drops from 100 nanoampere to 10 nanoampere and from 100 nanoampere to 10 nanoampere when the VGS changes from 0.212 volt to 0.14 volt. Now from here we can find the value of N. Okay. So if we take the natural logarithm of this, so that means log of 10 to the base E, here we see it becomes Q into VGS minus VGS2 by NKT, right? So natural logarithm of 10 equals Q delta VGS by NKT. This delta VGS is the change of gate to source voltage required. And this is also referred to as a slope factor, S. This N and S are related. This S means that how much voltage change in the gate to source voltage is required, and N shows as that what is the is a quantitative parameter. It denotes this swing. Okay. So what is the value of swing and what is the value of S? Now we tend to find out the value of NKT by Q. KT by Q is 26 millivolt at room temperature, and log of 10 to the base E is nearly 2.3026. So here you see the desired. It is desirable that in subthreshold region current drops off considerably as one reduces VGS. So this implies a small n. And how small? So with n equal to 1, if the swing parameter is 1, then S requirement is 60 millivolt per decade. Okay. But normally it is found to be in the range say 1.5 to 2, or roughly it is between 1 to 2. So if it is required then 1.5 to 2 it has been observed, then it is found that the this required change in the voltage of VGS is 90 to 120 millivolt. Okay, so 1.5 if n lies between 1.5 to 2, this limit, it means that the limit of delta S slope delta VGS is from this value, that means NKT by Q. Okay, so 26 into log of 10 is 2.3 multiplied by value of N, so 1.5. So that means roughly between 90 millivolt to 120 millivolt. Okay, one must determine the proper values of N from the device measurement. Now, for the given data, let us see what is there. Here we saw that 2 points of experimental data was there. For VGS equal to 0.212 volt, it was 100 nanoampere. And for VGS equal to 0.14 volt, it is 10 nanoampere. That means order of magnitude difference. So from there, from this plot of log ID versus VGS with VDS equal to 1.8 volt, okay, find the value of N and the slope factor is in subthreshold region for PMOS device. For PMOS device, of course. So here S equal to delta VGS. That difference of the gate to source voltage, that is 0.14 to 0.212, that is only 72 millivolt. Okay, and we can find the value of N. N will be found to be nearly 1.2, right? So 72 millivolt of slope factor is equivalent to saying that the subthreshold swing parameter is 1.2. Okay. So that's how we discuss the subthreshold conduction. Now, what we can do is that, so subthreshold conduction is somewhat unavoidable, but in order to reduce the power consumption or dissipation due to subthreshold conduction, it will be the designers tend to keep the threshold voltage at a relatively higher value. Okay, that means in order to control the subthreshold power dissipation, it will be advisable to keep the threshold voltage at a relatively higher value. Okay, but keeping the threshold voltage at a relatively higher value will tend to introduce some speed penalty. That means the propagation delay will increase. But for the sake of containing power dissipation, sometimes people go for keeping the threshold voltage at a relatively higher value. That means aggressive aggressive downscaling of threshold voltage the designers do not attempt. Okay, that's all. Now, next what we see is that let me now sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Not this one. So next I'll go over to a brief discussion on the inverter. I believe you can see it, is it not? Or all of you can see it.
Yes,
MOS
sir.
okay, so MOS inverter.
It's
Just we start the discussion here. It's quite cold in Kharagpur, so so I'm trembling in cold. Yeah. So inverter is the most fundamental logic logic gate that performs a Boolean operation on a single input variable, and this is the normally used logic symbol. Okay. So B is the output of the inverter, A is the input. This we write 0 and 1. So by 0 and 1 again we do not understand a fixed voltage but a range of voltages. That means this is the brick wall characteristic. You can say voltage transfer characteristic where the along the abscissa or x-axis we are plotting the input voltage and the output voltage along the y-axis. So when VDD by 2 it is nominally in the middle of the swing. Okay, VDD by 2 if for this is the again the brick wall response for the ideal inverter. That means this is referred to VDD by 2 is referred to as the inverter switching threshold voltage. Okay, and inverter switching threshold voltage means below the VDD by 2, if the input voltage comes to lie below VDD by 2, then output voltage for all practical purpose will be VDD, and if the input voltage is above VDD by 2, then the output voltage will be straightforwardly 0. But it hardly happens. This is the ideal case. Okay, for this is the voltage transfer characteristic of the ideal inverter. Normally, first of all, we'll look into the DC or static voltage transfer characteristic of the inverter circuit. So where we write it VTH, remember that we are writing V underscore capital T for technology threshold voltage. Here we are writing VTH2, but normally we'll change this symbol from VTH to VM, okay, or VS, because this is the switching threshold voltage and VM for typically in the middle of the range, but it is not in the middle. So instead of writing VTH, we'll make use of terms like VM or VS, something like that, because it is referred to as the inverter switching threshold. Now, what is this inverter switching threshold voltage? That also we shall see. So normally in inverter, we have got a load, and the characteristic of the load will tend to determine the characteristics of the inverter circuit. The type of the load, whether it is resistive load or a PMOS transistor or a NMOS transistor, that too, whether it is in saturation or linear mode, okay, that will determine the characteristics of the inverter circuit. And Cout is the capacitive load, the output. So this capacitive load can be different things. This capacitive load means it refers to the input impedance of the driven load, which can be again another inverter or another gate, whatever. Also, a part of the Cout is accounted for by the interconnection capacitance. Okay, and also later on we shall see that in this Cout has got mainly the input impedance of the load, input of the driven similar circuit. Okay, or also interconnect capacitance, also something called self capacitance of the inverter itself, the driver itself. Okay, but that we shall discuss later on. And DC gate current of the NMOS transistor is taken to be 0. So for all practical purpose, input current into this and out DC current is taken to be very negligible. Okay, and load device will be a two-terminal circuit element with terminal current IL and terminal voltage VL. This load can be various ways. Now, we study about the voltage transfer characteristic. What are the important salient voltages? So this is more typical of a practical inverter. It is not like the brick wall response. Okay, not like this straight line drawing. So the curve indicates that if you have got a load device, okay, so as the inverter pull down device, you have got a suppose an enhancement mode NMOS transistor. So long as the input voltage, that means the gate to source voltage, remains lower than VT, so the voltage axis, the output voltage axis remains horizontal. After VGS exceeds VT, then the current curve, the voltage curve starts falling as current conduction happens. And after the threshold voltage, it will increase with a sharp slope. But before it attains the sharp slope, there is a point at which the slope of the voltage curve will be numerically equal to 1, dV of d equal to -1. And then it has a sharp slope, and before it approaches the lower limit, the output voltage, again the slope will decrease numerically. So again we have got a second voltage point, input voltage point, at which the magnitude of the slope equal to 1. So dV out d equal to -1 at a input voltage point, which is referred to as VIL for the relatively lower value of the input voltage, and for relatively higher value of input voltage, it is referred to as VIH. And the inverter switching threshold voltage is VM. Okay, it occurs at the intersection of the straight line with unity slope, which passes through the origin. It intersects the voltage transfer characteristic curve at a point where input equals output. So both input and output at this point of time, at this particular region, you can say, happens to be same. That is, it is referred to as the switching threshold voltage. It is VM or VS. Okay. And what are VOH and VOL? So VOH is a typical output voltage when the driver transistor enhancement transistor is off, is in cutoff. And VOL is the output voltage corresponding to the case when input voltage of amount VOH is applied at the gate across the gate to source of the driver transistor. Okay. So VIL is the typical input lower voltage input voltage satisfying this condition. That means the slope being equal to -1. For V in greater than VT, output voltage drops gradually with the finite slope, and after that the slope will increase. So two critical voltages points are there: input voltage VIL, VIH. Apart from that, we have got VOH and VOL, the important output voltages, and VM, that is the fifth important salient voltage at which V input equals the output voltage. So that happens at the intersection of the unity slope straight line and the voltage transfer characteristic. Okay, so 5 critical voltages are there. Now we just pay into attention to this noise. What is the noise? So circuit noise means something undesired, unwanted signals that are coupled to some part of the circuit from neighboring lines, usually the interconnection lines. And this happens due to capacitive or inductive coupling. That means voltage suddenly drops. It can also rises due to, that means noise can be positive or negative in effect. And the result of this interference will be that signal level at one end of the interconnection line may be considerably different from signal level at the other end. And again, this interconnection can be of different conducting layers. It can be due to metal, or it can be due to polysilicon, or division, whatever. So typical propagation of digital signals under the influence of noise, let us investigate briefly. So you have got an inverter I1. Before the signal encounters a similar other circuit, it will pass through an interconnect. Okay, this interconnect can be built of polysilicon, or can be made of metal, whatever. But some, and due to the neighboring lines, it different in say which is passing vertically or horizontally, in various directions will induce some voltage. So we know that LDIDT is an induced EMF due to some inductive coupling, or due to capacitance also some voltage change can take place, okay, due to induction. And because of that, the voltage can go up or high. Suppose here we show the typical noise margin picture. That means on the output side, this is the what do you call, the voltage range. So VOH is the typical lower end of the logic 1, and VOL is the typical higher end of the lower side of the voltage when you are concentrating on the output of a typical inverter. And correspondingly, when it is passing over an interconnect and it is appearing at the input of the next inverter, at the input side the range is a bit different. That means for the logic 1 level signal, VIH is a typical lower limit for the logic 1 level signal at the input end, whereas VIL is a typical higher limit for the logic 0 range for the input of the inverter. Okay. Normally, the VIH, VIL, the definition we saw that at VIH and VIL, the slope of the, that means the dV out dVn equal to -1. Now, why VIH is kept at the boundary? This is user given. Okay. See, due to the operation of the inverter, okay, it is found that dV at VIL and VIH both, the slope equals -1. But now the question arises why the designer has kept VIH and VIL as the boundary of logic 1 and logic 0 respectively. Okay. Right. So that will now answer the question why VIH and VIL are kept as the boundary of the logic 1 level and logic 0 level respectively on the input side of an inverter, and for that matter any other gate also. Here we see that suppose it has been fixed, so that transition region is called the forbidden region. That for proper digital operation there is a margin given to, there is a margin allotted for the signal variation due to noise. Noise may sometimes become unavoidable. We cannot make it completely zero. So, but there is some margin. So here, for example, at the input of an inverter, if you apply VOH, at the output you get VOH. Now, as it passes to an interconnect, okay, so with VOL, you see that some positive going noise can affect it. So much so that the input, when it prior to appearing at the input, it has got some positive increase. But that increase will be tolerated provided it does not go beyond VIL. So if it goes beyond VIL, okay, there is a sharp curve. Okay, if it goes beyond VIL, then it starts falling very drastically. Okay, so the actual voltage level will be difficult for us to perceive or also to measure. Okay, and similarly, if it is kept within VIL, that means it does not go above VIL, then it is allowed. And okay, so that means proper, it will be still read as a logic 0 signal. Okay, if so, that means inverter, if it provides an input of logic 1, it will produce output logic 0. So it will still remain logic 0 when it appears at the input of the successive stage, input of the successive inverter. So with VIL, the output will be towards the higher side. So let's say it goes to VOH. Now it has to go through another interconnect before it appears at the input of the third inverter. Here, suppose you say here if positive going noise affects, then nothing to worry. Okay, it will remain snugly into logic 1. But suppose some negative going noise affects. Okay, so VOH, it will be tolerated if it goes up to VIH and no further. Because if it goes below VIH, then again, that means between VIL and VIH, it is the forbidden zone. Here, the slope is very sharp, and we cannot know for sure what is the actual voltage level, whether logic 0 or logic 1. So if the positive I'm sorry, if the negative going noise, its effect is limited so that the voltage level goes down VIH but not further, then it is acceptable. Okay. So this is the situation. So then you have got a measure of the noise margin both on the lower side and the higher side. Noise margin on the lower side, it is given by the difference of VIL and VOL. VIL is normally higher, VIL is minus VOL. So that tends to tell us about the how much margin can be tolerated when a positive going noise affects the output of an inverter. And NMH on the other hand tells us how much noise effect can be tolerated when the output is affected by a negative going noise. So it can go maximum from VH to VH, but no further. So for high signal level and this for low signal level. NML is defined as VIL minus VOL and NMH is defined as VOH minus VIH. Now we shall answer the question why VIL and VIH are kept as the boundary of the logic 1 and logic 0. For that, let us again look into the expression. That means the output of an inverter under noise-free steady state or DC condition, it is a nonlinear function of input voltage. V out equal to FV in. Okay. But if input signal is affected by noise, is part up from nominal value by noise, the output value will also consequently deviates from its noise level. That means V prime output means this is the output in the presence of noise, and that will be function of input plus noise. These are some noise on the input side. V noise is the voltage perturbation. And first order Taylor series expansion, if you do, that means f of x plus h equal to, if you remember from your what do you call first year calculus, so fx plus h of f prime x plus h square by 2 factorial, f double derivative, and h cube by 3 factorial, f third derivative, and so on. So this is for the Taylor series expansion, right? Now, if we restrict ourselves only to first order term and neglecting the higher order term, because anyway, for sure, if delta V noise is a small value, okay. Also, if you find that the second order derivative and other things are smaller, or rather h is smaller, then we can restrict ourselves to this only. That means part of output equal to nominal or unperturbed output plus external perturbation, that means the noise, and the voltage gain, that means the dV out D. So obviously we see that if dV out D is less than 1, then it will be tolerable. Okay, although this will lead to some change, but it is within the limit. On the other hand, if dB of D is greater than 1, then the noise can become, the effect of noise may not be tolerated. That means the output voltage that will result, we cannot define it as belonging to either logic 0 or logic 1. So that means some chance of misinterpretation of the output of the inverter will remain. Okay, so that's why for practical purpose, the boundary is kept at VIH and VIL respectively for logic 1 and logic low level of signal. Because plain and simple, if magnitude of voltage gain at V input is less than 1, that means dV out D out magnitude is less than 1, into input perturbation is not amplified and output perturbation is very small. That means tolerable. Still some output perturbation will be there, but it will be within the, that means we can still correctly view the voltage value. However, if the voltage gain is more than 1, a small change in input voltage and slight perturbation will result in amplified and large perturbation in output voltage. So this leads one to define the boundaries of the valid input signal regions as VIH and VIL, where dV out D equal to just 1. Okay, magnitude. So you see that if the input voltage lies within 0 to VIL, then it's also acceptable. On the other hand, for the higher side, that means acceptable lower range for the input voltage is 0 to VIL, and for the higher range it is VIH to VDD or VOH. Whereas for If it happens to be in the transition region, in the forbidden region, then dB out is greater than 1, or it can be much higher than 1 also, right? Large. That is here, somewhere here. So transition region. So this is normally if signal goes due to what you call unchecked noise, then the error in reading the level will occur. However, if it's within the limit, then that means the NMH noise margin is obeyed, noise margin is found to be satisfied, then the operation is what you call operation is error free, you can say. So boundary as boundary of the higher level input signal is kept to be VIH, that is the lower limit, and the upper limit of the logic 0 level signal in the input side is kept to be VIH. Next, we see just the power and area consideration. Power and area, these are very important parameters for the designer. Okay, so first let us see power consumption. Because power consumption, if you allow power consumption, this will lead to temperature increase. Okay, and temperature increase means, as we saw, that it is a what you call a vicious effect. Temperature will also increase the current, and it will again increase the power. So it is a circular effect, you can say. And 1 million or even more logic gates can be accommodated on a VLSI chip. So circuit density and is expected to even increase higher and higher. As each gate on the chip dissipates power and generates heat, removing this thermal energy becomes essential. And junction temperature is given by this ambient temperature and plus theta into P, where theta is referred to as the thermal resistance. So it reminds us of the Boltz's law. Okay, so that means this theta, why is it called resistance? But it leads to, that means per unit 1 watt increase, what is the net temperature increase? Okay, so that's why it is defined in this fashion. Now, considering the need of extended battery operation of time, okay, for laptop computers and mobile handheld device, it is important to reduce the amount of power dissipated by circuit in both DC and dynamic operation. Now, in order to reduce the power, we need to reduce the current. Okay, so how we can do that? By reducing the size of the device. That means we saw that the current, if you look at the current expression, okay, WYL into mu COX, right, by 2 into VGS one LPT whole square. So there what we can do is WYL we can reduce. And normally channel length, people do not keep it same throughout a particular process node. So people tend to decrease the value of W. Okay. So DC power dissipation of inverter circuit is the product of power supply voltage and amount of current drawn from power supply during the steady state or standby mode. That is PDC equal to product of VDD and IDC. Now IDC depends on the input and output voltage level. If it so happens that on an average Vin equal to 0 during the 1/2 of the total operation and input Vin equal to logic 1 during the other half, the overall DC power dissipation can be estimated in this form. DC power dissipation equal to VDD by 2 multiplied by DC Vin equal to low. So normally IDC happens to be 0. So what you get, simply VDD into the case when you are applying, say, a voltage of VOH at the input of the enhancement mode driver. What is the current we calculate? That equals our IDC at Vin equal to high voltage. That multiplied by VDD, that means the power supply voltage divided by 2. Okay. And difference of power amongst different inverter design. That means this difference in inverter stems from the fact that as regards the type and nature of the load device. It can be pure resistive load, or it can be some active device like an enhancement mode transistor or depletion mode transistor or saturated enhancement mode transistor or PMOS transistor. Various nature can be there for the load device. Based on that, the power dissipation will vary. Okay. And next, the important parameter, namely area. For area, what you need to do to reduce the chip area of the inverter, one needs to reduce the area of the MOS transistor. And how to reduce the area of the MOS transistor? That means the surface area is W by L. Okay, normally L one does not interfere with, but one can decrease W. So gate width by gate length ratio of the MOS transistor can be kept to be 1. That means you remember that the surface area becomes smallest for a square. Okay. So this, however, can limit or compromise other criteria such as noise margin. This we shall see in detail. That means how the aspect ratio affects the value of noise margin. Remember, noise margin on the lower side, it is given by VIL minus VOL, and on the higher side by VOH minus VOH minus VIH. So as we shall find out that VIL and VIH, also VOL for different inverter, can be affected by W by L ratio of the inverter. And W by L ratio is the parameter which is for which some freedom lies at the hand of the designer. That means to choose the particular width. If you choose a particular value of W, you can bring the VIL to a particular value, and you can say enhance the noise margin if you can make it more, or VIH if you can decrease, then you can enhance the noise margin on the higher side. Okay, so to uh, for the for getting realizing a particular desired noise margin, you can the designer should have some freedom to modulate the width of the device. So this, however, can limit or compromise other criteria. So if you have to keep W minimum, then noise margin, the desired noise margin may not be achieved. Also, the output current driving ability may not be achieved. The output current may need to be of some certain minimum value so that the propagation delay can be limited. That means to attain a particular targeted propagation delay, that means the TPLH say should be lower than equal to 2 nanosecond or 3 nanosecond. In order to achieve that, W should have a minimum possible value in terms of nanometer or micrometer. If you bring W below that, then the propagation delay will increase and we will miss the target. Okay, so various targets one has to achieve as a designer. One is the speed, then the power dissipation, and then the area. So sometimes we have to draw a line between if we are aggressive in minimizing the area, we may miss the target of speed. Okay, so to attain a particular speed, a minimum area should be allowed. Also, there lies the problem of if you increase the W in an unchecked manner, the power dissipation will be increased. Okay, because current will be increased. So if power dissipation or limiting the power dissipation or power conservation be our objective, then we have to tolerate some propagation delay, some loss in the speed. So speed power trade-off will also be a basis for designing acceptable inverter and acceptable gates. Okay, so that we shall see later. Also, dynamic switching speed. Dynamic switching speed also, when we shall derive an expression for TPLH and TPHL, we shall find that this W by L ratio plays an important role. Okay, so to attain a higher dynamic switching speed, W by L should be a minimum value should be there. If you try to decrease W below that, then the switching speed will become less and less. Okay, so thereby we can miss the target on the speed of the desired speed of the system. So design of inverter circuit will involve a detailed consideration and a trade-off of these factors. So I think we can look into the design aspect of typical inverter tomorrow. Okay. So meanwhile, if there is any question, dear friends, you can ask. Okay, sorry, I'm not taking your attendance. I'm sorry. Because of this, yeah, it's very cold here. So we are participant, download attendance list. Okay. Yes, Abhishek, Aditi, any question? Alex, Ambuj, hope you are doing fine. You all of you are in the campus, or some of you are at home also?
At home.
Okay, good. Yeah, stay safe, stay healthy. Yes. Okay, Chanchal, Chupali Chanchal Sahu, are you there in the class? Okay, fine. Yeah, is any question? Please feel free to ask. So whatever we saw today's discussion, we have just as an introduction to MOS inverter, the salient voltages. So when we shall discuss in depth on the MOSFET inverter, these 5 salient voltages we have to keep in mind. Yes, any question? Yeah.
No, sir.
Okay. So we'll have occasion to estimate the different 5 different voltages. Okay, VOH and VOL are the salient output voltages, and VIL and VH are the salient input voltages. Apart from that, you will also have to to estimate the switching threshold voltage. So why switching threshold voltage becomes important is that the inverter mostly works on a single variable. Okay, so for different ranges of applications, it may be necessary to apply the inverter for voltage range which is more on the higher side. So at that means if it is so desired that in the particular circuit design will work mostly towards the higher side of the voltages, then it may be necessary to keep the switching threshold voltage somewhat higher than the middle value. That means not always VM will be equal to VDD by 2. That means switching threshold voltage will be VDD by 2 for the ideal case. So for most of the applications, if it is desired that it will be the input range, the input voltages will be on the higher side, then it may be necessary to keep the input switching threshold voltage on the higher side, so that moment the moment the input voltage comes below that, and immediately the output voltage will be. That means if you keep the input voltage switching threshold voltage toward the higher side, then below that the input voltage the whenever the input voltage is lower than VM, okay, the output voltage will be in the higher side. Okay, and correspondingly, if for most of the applications, the range of input voltage is found to be towards the lower side most of the times, then the switching threshold voltage should be made on the lower side, so that a slight departure from this, that means the moment input voltage goes past output voltage, okay, one can detect the change, and accordingly the inverter output can show the what you call the result of the processing. Okay, but if you have if 50% of the time the input voltage stays on the lower side, and for the other 50% it stays on the higher side, then one can take a ideal value of VM. Now choice of VM is also not independent. Choice of voltage, as we shall find, may depend on the WIL. So WIL will become an important handle in the hands of the circuit designer. That means you should be judicious in making a choice on the aspect ratio WIL of the inverter, which will in turn determine the salient voltages like VOL, VIL, VIH, and also the switching threshold voltage. So in the analysis part, we'll see that WIL, if it is given, then it will dictate the value of VIL and VIH, also VOL, and that for that we can find out that this particular design, how much noise margin is allowed. Okay. On the other end, when the design aspect will come, that means in order to meet a particular power dissipation, or in order to meet a particular current driving ability, or in order to meet a particular dynamic speed, what is the desired value of WIL? Okay, so those will be a design problem. That means going from the targeted or specified value of dynamic speed or dynamic or driving current, we can try to determine the value of WIL. Okay, so determining the value of WIL means that we are taking into account a design problem, And if the WIL is given, based on that, we try to calculate the value of VIH, VOL, and VIL, and correspondingly the noise margin. It will be a analysis problem. Okay, so we'll have occasion to discuss firstly the analysis problems at the beginning, and then we'll take up some design problem. Okay, you have got any question, you can ask. Okay, Tausif, how are you? Tausif, you are in IIT Kharagpur
Yes,
campus?
sir. No, sir. I am at my home.
Where is your home? In Dhaka?
Sir, Bangladesh. Ji, sir, Dhaka. Yes, sir.
Or in Dhaka district?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Stay fine. How is the temperature there? It's quite cold, or?
Sir, it's quite cold today.
Yeah, here also.
It was not yesterday.
Maybe some wind circulation may be there. Anyway, dear friends, so I think you have got another class to attend. No? Still, if you have any question,
Yes,
you can ask me. This I'll upload today. Don't worry. Yes. Okay. So. Okay, then let us bring the class to a close. Okay. Thank you for your attendance. We'll meet again tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Okay, then, dear friends. Let us say goodbye. If we shall we, or if you have got any other question, you can ask. Otherwise, let me thank you for attending the class, and hope you have a good health and enjoy the day. Thank you, dear friends. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.